And let me see, we need to talk now to a gentleman we talked to before on Openline, Paul Einarsson. Mr. Einarsson, are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Where are you now as we speak?
I'm in Calgary today.
In Calgary, and you are the COO and chairman of Geophysical Service Incorporated, GSI. And you, last time you were on talking to us a few days ago, last week I guess it was, you were saying that Nalcor may have some of your data, seismic data, and you can't even get access to it or even find out if they have it. Is that correct?
Yes, we have two court proceedings on access to information requests that they're refusing to answer.
And the last time we talked, we dealt with a part of the problem, I said, and then you started to get into another area, and I said, well, I tell you what, you've given us a lot. Let's talk about that the next time you call. So would you like to pick up where you left off, Paul?
Sure. What I was going to talk to you about was the Canada Newfoundland Offshore Petroleum Board.
Right.
Just to take a step back first, GSI contributed to all of the discoveries off of Newfoundland, acquiring all the original seismic data. We're the largest owner of seismic data there. We have made the government billions from our activities that resulted in exploration and discoveries and production.
And how does that work? Do you sell your data at a fixed cost, or do you share in the billions of dollars that are coming in from the offshore?
Oh, we don't get a benefit from that, certainly not. What we do is we invest in the data at great cost, expense, and effort, and then we license it to various oil companies, which actually increases competition for bids.
Yeah.
So that's what we do.
And Nalcor, how do you suspect Nalcor got its gritty little hands on your data that they won't even say they have and won't allow you access to? How did that come about?
Well, that's one of the things we're trying to get is the operating agreements between Nalcor and its partners, and we want to see what information is shared between them. And even if there isn't, the partners are using our data, and Nalcor is getting the benefit of that indirectly. Right. And our agreements require that all partners must license the data.
Okay, and how does it...
Nalcor, and they refuse.
And how does the CNLOPB fit into all of this?
Well, the way they fit into this is what I mentioned to you last week. It's the government choosing one system over another, and I gave you the analogy of music, and you mentioned you're an author, so you should be very interested in this. How are creators of information handled? So I basically use the analogy of Napster versus iTunes. iTunes, the recipient of the information wins because they only have to pay 99 cents, but they have a valid license to have that music.
Right.
The owner gets some money, and iTunes has made billions.
And everyone shares in the benefits by people consuming the product.
That's right. So it's a win-win-win for the recipient, for iTunes, and for the creators of intellectual property.
Okay, go ahead.
Versus a system that is a lose-lose-lose, which would be Napster. Napster used to just share it out there willy-nilly without compensating the creator of that music. The recipient had a copy that was illegal, and, of course, Napster's out of business now.
And, of course, there's no surer way to kill creativity than to make sure that the geniuses producing who are the creators don't get a fair return on what they're producing.
Or don't get any return at all.
Which is what you're alleging, is it?
That's right. So,
and CNLOPB...
Basically, that's what they've chosen. They've chosen the Napster method.
Yeah.
Even though I've suggested to them years ago the iTunes method.
Right, and how does the CNLOPB, which is supposed to be arm's length, representing the federal and provincial governments, objectively doing that, are they in cahoots somehow with Nalcor? How does that work?
Well, the province controls Nalcor, and the province controls the Newfoundland Offshore Petroleum Board.
Well, it has a say in the Offshore Petroleum Board with the federal government.
Well, the reality is the province controls it, because the federal government can do nothing without the approval of the province.
Yeah.
And I've even had this happen, because I went to several federal ministers and I talked to them about what's going on. They're shaking their heads. They're agreeing with me. I even had one flat out say, "I'll help you. This is wrong."
Yeah.
And then what happens is they go back and the bureaucrats explain to them that the federal minister just doesn't have any power to direct.
He's got no power to make someone do something, but he, like the provincial government, would have a veto power to stop something. And this is what the provincial government is doing. That's your allegation, is it?
Yeah, well, he's really not able to stop anything. That's the problem, is apparently they don't have the power to stop the province from doing this expropriation.
And Paul, you've got these two cases before court, so what's, I'm not complaining, I'm delighted you're telling us about it, so what's the point of talking publicly about it now? Why don't you just leave it to the judicial process?
Well, because basically we have to follow the rules, otherwise we get our hands slapped. And yet these groups are not following any of the rules, and they continue to damage our business and our intellectual property. So I want to make it public that, there's this massive bait and switch going on. The Newfoundland board, the premier is running around saying, "Oh yeah, this is for the greater good," and she just minimizes our serious concerns and our serious allegations.
So she sides with Nalcor, the Crown Corporation, when the discussions take place. Is that the point you're making?
Oh, she sides with this crazy plan that's going on. And basically what's happening is she says, "Oh yeah, this is for the greater good, and we've been doing this forever, and we're modernizing." And that's not what happened at all.
Now,
what happened is a bait and switch.
Bait and switch. What are you saying? Just maybe. What do you mean by that? Bait and switch.
Well, bait and switch. Originally, it's exactly what I'm saying. Originally, the boards used to allow people to come in and look, and then they started allowing people to make copies of the paper. Then they moved to JPEG and TIFF images and giving those out.
Yeah.
Now their new policy is to give out the SEG-Y digital tapes and our field data thrown in as a bonus on tape. That's the exact product.
So if they're giving out this stuff, how are you still in the dark as to whether Nalcor has your data? I mean, if they're giving out this stuff, surely your contacts with the industry would confirm in your minds whether or not they have it or not, wouldn't it?
No, everyone's mum. Nobody wants to talk about any wrongdoing, and it's very difficult to get that kind of information.
Is this the kind of clout and power and overbearing stance that Nalcor has in the industry?
Well, it's an abuse of power on the part of the province, Nalcor, and the offshore board. When
does the matter come to court for a resolution, at least at the first level?
Well, I have various actions. There's one against the National Energy Board in Calgary. There's one against the Nova Scotia Offshore Board in Nova Scotia, which should be faster. And then there's one in Newfoundland that's a much broader and larger case.
Everybody seems to be out to diddle you. I mean, the federal government's board, the Nova Scotia board, and the Newfoundland Labrador board and Crown Corporation. How does that come? I mean, that strikes me as a bit strange. Paul, how did you get yourself in that situation?
Well, basically what happens is you start to stand up against these powers that be, and I tried to protect our intellectual property, so I started notifying everybody of what they were doing, violating copyright and such. And what happens when you stand up against them, their decision was, instead of to start doing the right thing, at every turn, they tried to circumvent the laws, and I could go into that for hours.
Okay, well, I'll tell you...
They try to circumvent the laws, and then what they do is they come after you. and they try to put you out of business so that then they can take all this 700 million of seismic data and just take it. And I can't defend myself.
That sounds ominous. I tell you, we have to leave it there now. We're past our break time, and of course, in a call-in show like this, we have very limited time we can devote to any one topic because we have so many callers calling in. But keep us posted. Will you call again and update us on anything that develops or doesn't develop on this? And when the matter is going to court, let us know, here or elsewhere. Let us know for sure, will you?
I certainly will.
And thank
you for having me.
And thanks for calling and telling us about it. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And I don't pretend to understand the ins and outs of what's going on there, except the allegation is the unwarranted, unlicensed taking of creative property, created data by the